build series, taking a straight axle tuber and then adapting on an IFS from a Techno short course buggy. I thought it was a truck, but I think it's buggy now. So what we've done so far is cut the nose off of this. It's a Coyote Emirates. Cut it off at a good reference point so we knew what we were working with. And the second thing we did was set up on the weld cable here with getting just a rough dimension, making sure we're right at or under 15 inches. So when this thing's set up, it's going to be just under 15 inches. 15 inches is the limit for the class specs. So I marked on the back of this skid plate where it sat on the existing pan, and then what I did was took a speed square, marked a square line, and then I cut the back, and then I sanded it down so the rear edge is square, and then it should line up, or it does line up with the back of the existing SMT. I think this is an SMT skid plate. So next, what we did was we found the center of the shock tower aligned with the center of the roll cage, got it all nice and squared up, and then what I did was I took a piece of wire, dipped it in just some enamel paint that I had, just some tester's paint. I dipped the tip in there, and then I was able to mark the holes for the axial styles transmission. So this Vanquish transmission is going to be the one used, so I marked the holes for that. Next step is going to be, after this is dried, don't touch that while it's wet because then you'll lose your marks. So now I have these 4 marks here, so I'm going to go drill some holes and then see if we can't mate this plate to that skid. Alright, so what I've done is taken a existing axial skid plate that I know has the same hole pattern, drilled the first hole here, and then I bolted it to the skid to kind of give me a template to make sure I knew everything was perfect. And if you look, the marks that I made with the enamel paint are really close, but they are off a little bit, so it's a good thing I didn't just go straight at those marks. Alright, well, there it is. All done, ready to go. Oh gosh. So, screwed those holes in. I got to countersink them so those countersunk screws will sit flush. And then the skid plate has a couple of bump outs in it, so I marked where I'm going to cut it back a little bit. So that's all I really got to do on the belly. And then on the top, I just got to remove this bar here for the steering. So I'm going to remove both of them from both sides, and then figure out how I'm going to attach it to the shock tower. I don't really want to mess with their geometry because Techno is really good stuff, you know, they know what they're doing. So I'm probably not going to mess too much with the shock tower. I'm going to attach it somehow to it and then do a new bumper. So one cool thing about stuff that's brazed together, you don't have to cut it. I don't have a lot of room to get in here with a cutoff wheel. So because it's brazed, we can unbraze it. We can heat up the joint and get the filler soft again, and we can remove pieces that we want to change. That is one cool thing about brazing. There we go. Okay, so moving forward on this U4 build. So if you remember, cut the front end off in the beginning, and this is the old front end. As you can see, the new one is a little bit wider. And what I did was I extended these side pieces, and the way that I extended them was I took a 3/16 tube and some 3/32 rod, and I threw a little flux inside the tube, a little flux on the rod, and actually brazed on like a little extension piece. And what I did after that was then I brazed it to the existing frame and had them sticking straight out. Then I started to bend them and form them, and then I decided I should probably get the camera out again. So we have the outermost rails set up. I think that's going to be where it ends. I might trim it up a little bit, but I wanted to keep the flex in that front bumper since He is going to do U4 with it also, besides Scale Ultra or 4Cross running with the truck. So I definitely wanted to leave the flexible bashable bumper. So I might cut this up a little bit higher just for clearance. And I also ended up unbrazing those two inside rods, and I made some new ones that are going to fit right in here, like so. So we get that brazed in, and then maybe a couple little filler pieces with some 1/8 rod, just to kind of give it the same flow as the back there. Okay, so I cut my pieces to length for these inside supports, and I fish mouthed them with 3/16 round file. I guess I should show you how to pick the angles and figure out how you're going to mark them to put those little fish mouths on them. So here's what I did. Oh, the first one's easy. This part's square. So you literally just make like a little notch. You can use it with a regular rectangle file first, and then just kind of go by hand until you get a nice little groove on it, so it fits, you know, nicely on the 3/16 tube. So that side was easy. So I set that on there, and then to get the angle marked for the front, you got everything set up about how you want it, and then just kind of Sharpie the angle of the tube you're attaching it to. Now what I do is grind it back to that spot till it fits in there nicely, and then kind of, if you look at a tube, how it reflects, it shows like a center line. So you get the center of where you just cut, and you can mark that with your Sharpie also, and then you mark the tip opposite side, and then that's where you make the groove that you're going to put the round file in. So it's a little bit trickier. It's going to take some practice, but as long as you can get that line set up, it's going to be easy to find the groove that you need to get the same fish mouth. Another important thing when you're doing stuff with all these weird complex bends and curves in it is mark your reference points. So obviously on the back here, we know that it's going to intersect with the roof bar. So on the front, I always make Sharpie marks on the tube I'm adding and the tube I'm adding it to. So that way if anything bumps or moves while I'm getting it set up, I know where it's supposed to be. I think you can see that. Let's see. See the little Sharpie mark there? So that way you have a point of reference when you go back to weld or braze it. Okay, stuff like that happens. Alright, we got the ends brazed, the inside and the outside. Next I'm going to remove it from the pan so I can add some like webbing, little triangles in here, just to kind of replicate the back, since it's kind of the style of this. See the webbing? So we're going to do maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to make sure that I add a support piece right where we did the extension, just to kind of reinforce where that piece is. So it's, you know, 1, 2, 3 to this, and then 4. And then I'm going to add a double bar, little bumper on the front there. I might do one piece of solid and then a tube on the top. So